what I really took away from Afghanistan was not so much the trinkets or the sort of souvenirs or anything like that. It was more the engagements that I had with Afghan women particularly, but Afghan men in the security forces. So they were the groups of people that I was working with outside of the NATO command. Speaking with women in the security services and learning about their lives, about their challenges in their careers, what they had experienced, what they needed from NATO. So this was all about engaging with them to see how NATO could better respond to them in terms of assisting their training, supporting women, increasing the number of women in the Afghan security services. That's what I took away from that, those interactions with those people. They still stick with me today, and of course, given the circumstances in Afghanistan since 2021, it's heartbreaking for me now to think of the women that I met, some of whom had obviously ceased work during the previous Taliban regime, come back to work in the security services, the police or the army, for 20 years of the NATO coalition being there, and now being forced back into their homes again. It's really hard to understand as a woman, when I sort of compare it to the experience that I've had in my military, to think that theirs is even worse than that, because they not only have experienced just technically some of the difficulties in having a career in a male-dominated sort of security sector, but also just culturally. Many men are against women working in the security sector in Afghanistan, working with men in the security sector. And they would frequently face threats of death, just even for coming to work each day. And so for me, that's what I took away from that experience, was actually learning that women globally, and this is like 2013, right? So 10 years ago, women globally are still experiencing high levels of gender inequality. And this was even before the Taliban came back, right? But they were trying to improve. And under the NATO, when NATO was there, things were improving for women in the security forces. And so it just made me realise that out there in the big wide world, not just here in Australia, there are women who are experiencing gender inequality, high levels of violence, gender-based violence, sexual violence, a whole range of things that prohibit them from actually fully functioning in public life. And as we know in Afghanistan now, women are pretty much relegated to the home again. They can't venture outside. They can't go to school past primary school. They can't get an education. If they don't get an education, who are going to be the women doctors that women need to see? Women will die in childbirth. There are all these, consequences of what's happening over there.